نرحب بكم مشاهدينا الأعزاء في حلقة جديدة من برنامج نيوز ميكر، والتي سنتناول بها قضايا تشغل حديث المنطقة، على رأسها نية الحكومة الإسرائيلية ضم مناطق من الضفة الغربية وغور الأردن، إضافة إلى أحداث سابقة قد يتحدث عنها ضيفي في الحلقة خلال فترة حكمه ظلت أسرارا لمدة طويلة. ضيفي لهذه الحلقة هو رئيس الوزراء الاسرائيلي السابق إيهود أولمرت. Welcome, sir, and thank you for having us. We welcome you on the screen of RT Arabic and the program The Newsmaker. You were the previous Israeli Prime Minister. You led the political arena in Israel for 3 years. Many interesting and important events happened during that time. Many were told, many were still untold. Maybe you told about them lately. We talk about Second Israeli War, negotiations with the PA, many other stuff we will talk about. But let me begin with the latest issues. In 2 weeks, or less than 2 weeks, Netanyahu vows to annex parts of the West Bank and the Jordan Valley to Israel. Do you think that that will happen?
I doubt it. I'm not certain, but I hope it will not happen. I think that if Israel will decide to take unilateral steps in order to annex the territories, this will bring an end to any possible chance in the future to negotiate with the Palestinians a comprehensive peace treaty between Israel and the Palestinians. And that will be a disaster for us and the Palestinians. And I'm utterly, absolutely, without any hesitations, I'm opposed to it, I'm against it, I don't want it. I think that we should not prevent the chances for establishing a Palestinian state. The key to the future of stability in the Middle East is a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. The key to make peace between Israel and the Palestinians is an understanding that there should be a Palestinian state. The Palestinians are entitled to have self-determination.
What are the
and I'm entirely in favor of it.
What are the consequences of such a unilateral move by the Israeli government?
Well, I think that if there will be a unilateral move by Israeli government, there is a likelihood that the Palestinian Authority will collapse. And that then the whole responsibility of Israel will be for the Palestinians in every part of the West Bank, which will be a setback, a return back to what happened before the 1993 agreement in Oslo between Israel and the Palestinians. This is a disaster for Israel, also for the Palestinians. But I think that it can shake up the situation in the Middle East, which can cause the eruption of terror in their territories, something that we've been through in the past, and that I think both us and the Palestinians are very anxious not to repeat. And also, I think that it can shake the stability of Jordan. And that will be a very serious damage to the state of Israel.
And that was my next question. Is the stability of Jordan something that Israel should maintain? I mean, it will be very much dangerous to Israel if Jordan...
First of all, it will be dangerous to Jordan. I have enormous respect for King Abdullah II. I think he is a very solid, serious, responsible leader that must be respected. We have an agreement with Jordan, and we have a long-standing relationship with Jordan. And we can't act without taking into account the possible ramifications of what we do to the events in Jordan. So yes, I think that if there will be instability in Jordan, I don't talk about collapse, I don't think there will be a collapse. If there will be instability in Jordan, that can damage serious Israeli interests, security interests in Israel. We have to maintain the same kind of cooperation that we had for a long period of time between us and Jordan, and the unilateral action in the West Bank without an understanding and cooperation and an agreement with Jordan, I think is a step against stability, and that can be very damaging to the interest of Israel and to the interest of Jordan.
Were the relations with the Kingdom of Jordan better during your arena, your ruling, than with Netanyahu's?
Well, I heard that Netanyahu wanted to talk to King Abdullah on the telephone, and he called and the king didn't answer. I can say that it never happened to me. We talked a lot on the telephone, and we met a lot. We met a lot, and I think we had trust. That doesn't mean that we always agreed on everything, but we had trust. I think I always trusted what he told me, and I believe that he trusted what I told him.
Do you think that the decision of returning Al-Baqura and Al-Ghumar, which are Jordanian rented land to Israel, that they returned them was part of that deterioration in relations between the two sides?
I think this was an expression of the distrust of King Abdullah to the Israeli leadership of the day. That's my feeling. I haven't talked to the king to have his arguments about it, but this is my feeling, and I think I'm not wrong.
You accuse Netanyahu of trying to flare up the region. Why would he benefit from such a thing?
Well, I'm afraid that the priorities of Prime Minister Netanyahu today are not the one that we would assume should be. His priority is not the foreign relations of Israel, or even the immediate security needs of the State of Israel. He is under indictment. He's going to go through a very painful legal process that may end up in a very painful way to him personally. So he's trying to divert the focus of the public opinion of Israel from what he has to go through personally into other matters. And everything serves him. The blowing out of any proportion of the coronavirus problem, as he did, at the cost of a very serious economic crisis to the State of Israel, is one example. Now the possible unilateral annexation of the Jordan Valley and the settlements in the West Bank is another example. I mean, what's the hurry? What happened lately that requires the immediate annexation of territories in the West Bank? Why do we need to do it? I mean, why? What happened? Is there any major terror? Is there any major threat? Is there any need at the present time that justifies such an act? No. But it serves the personal agenda of Netanyahu. And this is something that most Israelis don't agree with. I hope that this conversation that we have will reach out for many people in the region here, in Arab countries, in Muslim states, that they will understand that there are many Israelis, I believe the majority of Israelis, that don't want to annex the territories, that want to have peace with the Palestinians, that are prepared to pull out from most of the territories in order to allow the Palestinians to have a state of their own, governed by Palestinians, independent and free of any suppression or occupation by the State of Israel.
Mr. Olmert, would your plan, let's go back to your political years in Israel as a prime minister, and you proposed a plan to Abu Mazen. Can you tell us about that plan?
Yes, the plan was very simple. I proposed a plan that is based on the two-state solution. Number one, there is a Palestinian state, there is the state of Israel. Palestinian state is the homeland of the Palestinians, the state of Israel is the homeland of the Jews, naturally. Number two, the borders should be based on the 67 lines. Not exactly the 67 lines, there will be some swaps of territories, but the size of the territory sovereign by the Palestinians will be equal to the size of the 67 lines, with swaps of territories of 4.5%, 5%, that's all. Number three, I propose that the Arab part of Jerusalem will be the capital of the Palestinian state.
Can you specify
The Arab part of Jerusalem means Beit Hanina, Shuafat, Sheikh Jarrah, Jabal Mukaber, Isawiya, Abu Diz, Wadi Joz, you name it, will be the Palestinian capital. This is an Arab city. I don't need it, I don't want it, it doesn't belong to me.
What about the old walls?
There is the Holy Basin. The Holy Basin is very important, very sensitive for three different religions. To the Jews, the Temple Mount, the Western Wall. To the Christians, the many different churches, including the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is perhaps the most important church in the whole world. It's very important for Christians. And of course, Al-Aqsa, which is very important for Muslims. So I thought that there should be no sovereignty of any nation, exclusive sovereignty over the Holy Basin. It will be the sovereignty of God. And there will be a consortium of 5 nations, the Saudi Arabians, which have a historical link to Jerusalem, Jordan, which has historical link to Jerusalem, the Palestinians, which are the residents, the State of Israel, for obvious reasons, and the United States of America. This consortium will be authorized by the United Nations Security Council and by the General Assembly to have the governing authority in the Holy Basin, which will maintain complete freedom of access to all the holy places for Muslims, for Christians, and of course for Jews.
What were the percentage of settlements that you were wanting to annex in that plan? And
4.5% of the territory, 5% of the territory of the West Bank should have been annexed, and 5% of what was Israel before should be given to the Palestinians. So the size of territory will be the same as 67, but slight changes. I think Obama adopted this definition, and George Bush was also entirely in agreement with this.
Were you willing to annex parts of the Jordan Valley in that plan?
No. No,
is it not important to Israel's security, as Netanyahu's claim?
The Jordan Valley was very, very important in 1967 because the Jordan Valley was the buffer between Jordan and the State of Israel in the 67 borders. This was true when there was, in the East Front, there was an army of Jordan, which was quite a powerful army, and there was the army of Iraq further into the east, which was very powerful and very big, that could threaten the State of Israel. Today there is no army in Iraq, and Jordan is a partner and an ally of the State of Israel. So the significance of the Jordan Valley under these circumstances is entirely different. What Netanyahu is doing now, and some of his supporters, they are building on the fears that we had in 1967. At that time, there were genuine fears about the West Bank. But we live in 2020. 53 years later, everything has changed. The entire geopolitical and strategic situation has changed completely. And what was important in 67 is much less important in 2020. There can be an agreement that there will be a military presence along the Jordan River, but it doesn't have to be on the Jordan Valley. It can be on the other side of the eastern side of the Jordan in the state of Jordan, so that the Palestinian state will have no military presence of Israel. This is the military presence of NATO forces along the Jordan River on the east side in the state of Jordan. This is something that I discussed with King Abdullah II at that time, and this is something that the then Secretary of State of the United States, Condoleezza Rice, discussed with King Abdullah, and he was very, very positive about it. So there is a solution to the security, potential security needs. There was another thing which was also accepted. I presented a security plan within the framework of an Israeli withdrawal from 95 or 96% of the territories, okay, and the swaps of territories that I've presented. I said we must have some security understandings in the event that things will change. You never know. We live in a very volatile and very unstable world. So I said, what will happen if one day there will be an army, I don't know where from, maybe from Iran, they will try to cross the Jordan. Israel will be further to the west in what was the 67 borders. Now we can't wait until an army crosses the Jordan and comes to the 67 borders, because then it will be very difficult to defend it. So I said, and it was accepted by America and by the Palestinians, that in the event that a foreign army will try to cross the Jordan, Israel will have a right to go with its army in order to stop the foreign army along the Jordan. And that will not be considered an occupation of the West Bank at that time, for that purpose only. Once we will defend ourselves and we will push them back, we'll withdraw again to the borders. But in order to defend ourselves, we had to have this option.
In summary, what you're saying is that there are no solid basis for the claims that this is important for Israel's security. Is it economical? Is it economical?
No, I don't think it's economical.
It's important for Israel's economy.
Why is it important for Israel?
Agricultural land?
Come on. This is a tiny little piece of land which is insignificant in the context or the broader context of Israeli economy and Israeli agriculture, and that is not a reason to annex the territories. And also, what is not yours is not yours. What is not ours is not ours. And I can't annex the Jordan Valley on the basis that it is important for security when, as you say, it may be important for the economy. It's not important for economy, and it's not essential for security. We can get away without the Jordan Valley and manage our security very well. Israel is a very strong country. We have nothing to be afraid of, no one to be afraid of in our Eastern Front. And if there will be a threat, we will know how to deal with it without annexing the Jordan Valley.
Why didn't you reach an agreement with Abu Mazen?
I didn't reach an agreement because Abu Mazen never said yes to my proposal. Also, by the way, very important for me to say,
why didn't you reach an agreement with Abu Mazen?
I said it in Annapolis, in the famous conference in Annapolis in November of 2007, under the auspices of the President of the United States, with the presence of every single foreign minister of every Arab and Muslim state in the world, and of course of many others. And of course the President of the Palestinian Authority, Dr. Abbas, was there. I said that we take very seriously the Arab Peace Initiative, which was born in Saudi Arabia originally, and was approved in Beirut in 2002, and was reapproved again, reconfirmed in Riyadh in June of 2007. I said that the Arab Peace Initiative can be a framework for further negotiations to resolve the issue of the Palestinian refugees. So I was prepared to accept the compromise on the borders within the line of what the Palestinians always wanted. I was prepared to accept that the Arab part of Jerusalem will be the capital of the Palestinian state, which is what the Arabs always wanted. I was prepared to share the administration of the Holy Basin to respect the sensitivities of the Muslims and the Christians and the Jews in a very reasonable and balanced way. And I was prepared to negotiate the issue of the Palestinian refugees within the framework of the Arab Peace Initiative. Unfortunately, Abu Mazen, Dr. Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, who I have a lot of respect for, by the way, I think he's a very serious and decent and responsible leader. Unfortunately, he didn't say yes. He didn't say no. Never said no, but he didn't say yes. Subsequently, later, I understood that he thought that we needed to have another 3-4 months. But as you know, I was under investigation, and my political rivals conspired to remove me from power precisely because I was very close to make an agreement with the Palestinians, because they were against this Palestinian agreement that I was aspiring for.
Your rivals were led by Netanyahu?
My rivals, led by Netanyahu, with a lot of money that they received from interested parties amongst supporters from overseas, particularly
your
from
rivals
America.
were led by Netanyahu?
And they initiated all these investigations against me in order to put me in the corner and incapacitate me so that I will not be able to carry on.
Yes, and how do you see Netanyahu's, how would you describe him in his ruling now?
Look, you know, when I take part in the political debates in Israel, I say everything that I think about Netanyahu. When I talk overseas, I restrain myself because I don't like to, I don't support him, I don't trust him.
Yeah. How do you see the issues that have been risen against him, the corruption accusations?
Look, I'm not familiar with the details to be able to offer any observation about the specifics. I don't know. He has to stand in court. He will have to stand in court, and he will stand in court. What I totally disagree with, what I am absolutely against, is what he tries to do in order to avoid the need to come to court. That is a total abuse of the authorities and the powers and the mandate that he has as Prime Minister. This is something that I think is very dangerous because he is shaking the foundations of the democratic principles of our government in our country. This is something that I can't agree with entirely. I don't say one word about the indictment. I don't know. I don't know whether he committed any crime. It has to be determined in court, and I hope it will be determined in court one way or another. I hope for him that he will be entirely cleared. I don't know. But what he is doing in order not to come to court, not to have to stand in court like every citizen, is in total violation of the basic fundamental principles of democracy. And that I can't agree with.
You would be happy to see him in that place, in prison?
No, I don't. I will not be happy to see him. No.
Let's talk about your years in power. In 2006, there was a big event. That was the Second Lebanon War. How do you see that that war changed the face of the region?
Listen, there is no question that I think since 2006, there was not one bullet shot from the Lebanese border to the State of Israel. So in terms of creating deterrence against the Hezbollah, and in terms of creating stability and preventing any violent confrontations, the second war in Lebanon was an historical success. There's no question about it. At a time when it was taking place, the fact that it took 33 days created an impression that it was a failure. And some people said we didn't achieve what we wanted. But 15 years afterwards, or 14 years afterwards, now we can say safely that this was the most spectacular success of any military confrontation that Israel was involved in its history. We created complete lack of any military confrontation for more than 14 years. What else can you expect?
Some disagree, especially with the Winograd committee that came up with conclusions about the war.
Yeah, but the
you remember that?
But the Winograd committee didn't have the vision and the power and the understanding to look into the future. They decided half a year later. 14 years passed, and still there is not one bullet shot from Lebanon. So is it a failure or is it a success?
I keep that to the people who are in their positions to talk about it.
When people, the people that live in the north part of Israel, you ask them whether they think that the Second Lebanese War was a success or not, they will tell you that they were never happier than the way things developed since the Second Lebanese War. They had complete security they never had before. For 60 years, they didn't have security as they had since the Second Lebanese War. So they think that this was a great success, and I think that this was a great success. And all the strategic experts of Israel, by the way, have the same position now, that this was a great success.
Have you, during that war and after, targeted key figures in Hezbollah?
No, listen, I heard the stories, I heard that Qasem Soleimani, Alay Rahmo, say that we were trying to kill him. That's not true. We were attacking the headquarters of the Hezbollah because they were fighting us and we needed to try and stop them. But we didn't have any particular personal target that we were looking for.
Not even Hassan Nasrallah?
No. I don't suggest to him at the present time to feel that he can go out everywhere he wants. He may be in danger. But at that time, what we wanted is what we achieved, which was to give them such a blow that they will not dare shoot at us again. And since then, they didn't dare shoot at us again. So
there was a target list or target bank, like they said, about the figures, key figures. Was he one of them?
Okay.
During the war?
There are many things that people say, but they are not always accurate. We have to take
so
it
you
with a
didn't
grain
make
of
these
salt.
statements about a failed assassination attempt against Hassan Nasrallah?
There was not at the time that I was Prime Minister, there was not one single attempt specifically, personally against Nasrallah. Not that I have any sympathy for him, not that I have any positive attitude towards him. I think that he is an enemy and a bitter enemy and a narrow-minded, extreme fundamentalist, radical hater person. But I don't think that he is the main problem, personally. It's the organization and what they are trying to achieve. And I think that they are very careful not to provoke Israel because they know what they suffered in 2006 and they don't want to go through the same experience anymore.
Have your government carried out strikes against Syria during these years,
No.
the past?
We destroyed the atomic reactor in Syria. That's true. I did it. I decided to do it.
That was revealed only lately.
Yes. Because I had no feeling that I need to, make a show off. There was a threat. Everyone understood that it can't remain. Atomic reactor in Syria is a major threat to the security of the state of Israel. And this was my responsibility to destroy it. And I ordered the Israeli Air Force to destroy it, and we destroyed it. Why do I have to embarrass the Syrian president and the Syrian people to say, I did it, I did it? They knew that I did it, even if I didn't say anything. They knew who did it and why we did it.
How many strikes did that government at that time carry against targets in the region?
We did many things in many places, but I'm not sure that I want to share it with you.
How far did you go?
We went very far and in very different places, and we did what was necessary for the security of the state of Israel. The two principles which guided me, by the way, the two principles were, one, to focus only when it was an imminent danger to the well-being and security of Israeli people in the state of Israel, number one. Number two, never to talk about it if it was not necessary.
Which is contrary to what's happening now.
Well, I'm different from Netanyahu, that's true. I think everyone knows it now.
Yeah.
We are different people, different personalities, different temperament, different positions, different attitudes.
Same goals? Not same goals.
No.
Military goals, meaning about the region.
I don't have any military goals. I want to live in peace with the Palestinians and with all the others. I'd be happy to live in peace with the Iranians as well. I don't hate the Iranians. No.
You carried out other major operations inside Iran. That's what I read recently. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Listen, not everything that you read I know, and not everything that you read I want to talk about. So you may have read, I don't know, and I don't want to talk about it. I say only this. Iran has never been an historical enemy of Israel. There are 80 million people in Iran. I'm sure that the majority of them want to live in peace with everyone, and certainly they don't want or they don't have any reason to fight with Israel. I hope that the Iranians will neglect all their extreme radical attitudes towards the state of Israel. Had I been the Prime Minister of Israel, I would have offered the Iranian Supreme Leader to meet and talk about resolving all the outstanding issues that they may have. I don't think that Israel has anything other than to make sure that the Iranians are not building nuclear capacity and that the Iranians are not intervening in the immediate surroundings of Israel in order to upset the balance which exists in the Middle East. Let them stay in Iran, take care of the Iranian needs, develop Iran, improve the quality of life of the Iranian people, create democracy in Iran. That's what they want, and that's what I think they should want. And, as far as I'm concerned, I have no problem with all this. When they try to upset the balance near my home, I have to take defensive measures.
How do you see it now that the claims that they are involved in Syria, Iran?
They are involved in Syria, and I don't like it, and I think Israel has to try and stop it and prevent it. I think that it was a failure that the Israeli government allowed them to penetrate into Syria in the first place. We should have stopped them, and we could have stopped them, and we had the power to stop them. And I think at that time the Prime Minister of Israel was having another priority, so he didn't pay the necessary attention that was essential in order to prevent the Iranians from penetrating into Syria in the first place.
There was also an interesting thing you said lately, that you were very close to meet with the Syrian president.
That's right.
Bashar al-Assad. Can you tell more about that?
Yeah, well, I asked the Prime Minister of Turkey at that time, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, to negotiate, to broker between me and Assad. And his team of the Turkish seniors, including the person that subsequently became Prime Minister, Davutoglu, were brokering between us and the Syrians. I had my people going to Ankara or to Istanbul, and the Iranians, the Syrians sent their representative to Ankara, and the Turks went from one place to the other and trying to broker an agreement. I think we were quite close, and there was a time that I was asked by Erdogan to come to Turkey with an understanding that Assad will come and they will have a press conference and will make an announcement about the negotiations. We had a formal announcement that was announced both in Damascus and in Jerusalem and in Ankara that there are contacts and negotiations, but we wanted to take it one step further and to meet and declare that we are about to conclude the negotiations for peace between Israel and Syria. But in the last moment, Assad preferred not to come, or he preferred not to send Walid Mualem, who was his foreign minister. And later they got mixed up with the civil war, and I think that he has got a very good reason to regret that he didn't make an agreement with me. Had he made an agreement with me at that time, he may have prevented the civil war in Syria.
Would you have given back the Golan Heights in that agreement?
Well, since we didn't make an agreement, I don't want to go into the details what may have become the focus of this.
But would you have given these?
I said I don't think that this issue stood in its own right, separate from a broader concept of what peace should be. So I can't answer you. My attitude that I always held was, for some reason there was this concept amongst some people in Israel that you can't make two negotiations at the same time. If you make an agreement with Palestinians, you can't deal with the Syrians, or if you make it with the Syrians, you can't deal with the Palestinians. This is nonsense. If you do the right thing, you can do many things together, as long as this is the right thing for the right cause, for the right interest of your country. So as far as I was concerned, I could have made the two agreements, the Syrian and the Palestinians, at the same time.
Could you have passed that agreement in an Israeli referendum?
I'm sure that had I made these agreements, it would have been supported by the overwhelming majority of Israelis, and certainly by their friends of Israel. President Bush doubted that Bashar Assad will agree to make an agreement with me, but he said that as far as he was concerned, he said, if you will make an agreement with Bashar Assad, I'll be very happy, because I want Assad to understand that the road to Washington goes through Jerusalem. And so that, you know, he would be very, very positive had there been an agreement between Israel and Syria. On the basis of principles that I discussed with President Bush and that we had an agreement with about.
Yes, and what other talks had you had with the neighboring countries that probably were under the table for a long time?
Well, when there were talks under the table, they should remain under the table.
With Saudis, for example?
I don't want to go into this. I don't want to embarrass anyone. We had better relations, informal, with some countries where we didn't have diplomatic relations. The fact is that the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia was in Annapolis. And I know, as a matter of fact, that when I concluded my remarks in Annapolis, the public remarks, he was applauding me. So, you know, and the Emirates and Bahrain and, you know, Oman and all the others. I met, by the way, I met with the Emir of Qatar in Paris publicly. The former Emir of Qatar, I met with him publicly. And of course, I was visiting Egypt very often, and I visited Jordan very often. I had good relations with them.
Did you visit the Gulf before?
I can tell you this. Now I can say that in my lifetime I was in the Gulf. When it was and how it was, that will remain for the next interview that I have at RT.
Okay, that's great. Looking forward. So tell me, how many Arab palaces have you entered in the Gulf? Just how many? Not who. Just how many Arab palaces have you visited in the Gulf during your...
I don't know about palaces. I visited some very nice houses.
How do you see President Trump's peace plan in the region? Could it be fruitful in bringing natural relations with the Gulf?
The easy way is to say, I disagree with this plan, or this plan is imperfect, or this plan has lots of weaknesses. It's very easy. There were so many plans in so many years, so you can say, okay, this plan is also not the right thing. I look at it in a different way, and I said it publicly in America, and I advised Mahmoud Abbas about it. I said, look, the plan is a framework. The plan of the century, as President Trump called it, the deal of the century, is established, is based on two principles. One is to have changes in the borders, where Israel will be able to annex some parts of the territories. The other thing is the creation of a Palestinian state. If these two principles are accepted by both Israel and the Palestinians, I don't see any reason why we should negotiate on that basis. Abu Mazen has to agree that a certain part of the West Bank may be annexed by Israel, and Israel has to publicly recognize that a Palestinian state should be created. I hope that the leaders of both sides will spell it out. For the time being, I haven't heard from the Israeli side that we accept the creation of a Palestinian state. So, and I haven't heard from the Palestinian side that they agree that there will be some changes in the borders. But I can tell you that when I negotiated with Abu Mazen, he did understand that there ought to be some changes of borders and the swaps of territories and so on and so forth.
How do you see the development of the normalization relations with the Arab countries, the Gulf states especially, that are talking about open?
No normalization will take place without an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians, full stop. As simple as that. If someone thinks that any of the Arab countries, the moderate Arab countries, the Saudis, the Emirates, whatever, that they will establish formal, open, official relations with Israel without having an Israeli-Palestinian agreement, I think this is out of the game entirely.
Because it started since your time, also there were relations.
I'm talking about formal, open and public relations. That will not happen without an agreement between us and the Palestinians.
Are you coming back to the political arena?
I'm looking at the political arena, and I don't feel that the time is ready for my return. But who knows what the future will do? We'll see.
How do you think that there will be any altitude to the Likud party with Gantz going with Netanyahu in a government? How did you see that?
In my lifetime, I've seen many changes taking place. So what is true today may not be true tomorrow. I think that the Likud is on its way for a departure from the main role in Israeli politics, and I'm not sure that Gantz and Ashkenazi, with blue and white, considering the last decisions they made, will be the alternative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. أولمرت. نشكر لكم حسن المتابعة أعزائنا المشاهدين. قد وصلنا إلى نهاية الحوار في برنامجنا نيوز ميكر. ننتظركم في حلقة جديدة من هذا البرنامج.